Welcome to Wine and Wingspan, a weekly podcast where your new book besties, Jess and Jo, review their favorite and least favorite reads over a bottle of the good stuff.
We're here to have a good time and certainly don't want to ruin yours, so please check the title and trigger warnings so nothing is spoiled.
You may find that your opinion differs from ours, and we want to hear about it. So follow us on social media and let your voice be heard in our comments. Without further ado, cheers! Hello, and welcome to this episode of Wine and Wingspan. We are your hosts, Jess and Jo, and every week we get on here and we drink our silly little drinks and we talk about our silly little fairy books with our silly little wingspans. And this week we're talking about the glorious, the ultimate, A Court of Mist and Fury. Mother was mothering when she wrote this book. It's just that book. So today we're going to talk about that. Before we get into it, Jess, how are you? You doing well?
I'm good. I have 2 weeks until school's over for the semester. So I am hanging on,
By a thread.
barely.
That's me. I am super busy
I was
right
studying
now.
Latin earlier and I was dying.
I'm so busy
Yeah,
right
you're doing
now.
all the things. We can't even talk about things that you're doing though.
No, there are secrets.
Can we? Can we talk about
No.
things?
They're all secrets. Well, I guess
They're
we can
horrible.
talk about...
This is terrible.
I can say that I started a job for Once Upon a Convention. Super exciting. So I'm going to be there. I hope to see you guys there. I'm the event manager for Once Upon a Con. And right now we're doing our Fae Day picnics. So there's, it's just a picnic, but a lot of work goes into just a picnic. So I am exhausted, but it's all worth it seeing all your smiling, beautiful faces at the Fae Days. So I am happy and tired and ready for more, but stay tuned for announcements from us adjacent to the con. But yeah, Jessie and I both have like a lot going on right now. I just went on a book retreat with the Therapy Book Club in Springfield, and that was super fun, and Jess couldn't make it, so I was like heartbroken the entire time because I didn't have my other half with me. But it was a lot of fun, and I want to do 1,000 more book retreats. They're just like, they're just so fun. And I have had some changes to my schedule. I know previously on the podcast I talked about some events I'm no longer going to be going to, some new ones that I haven't talked about. So if you want to know full schedule of events of where I'm going to be and also where the podcast is going to be, make sure that you are tuning into our social channels for all of the updates on where you can meet us in person. But yeah, without further ado, Akamath. We talked about Akatar the last 2 weeks, and I'm really excited to talk about Akamath.
I know. We had to get through Akatar to get to So I did want to start out with some fun trivia that I found online. I found a website, and it's like a Court of Thorns and Roses fandom. I don't know who runs this, but awesome for you for doing all this. So the book was originally going to be called A Court of Wind and Stone as the working title, which is interesting. But Bloomsbury UK informed Sarah that wind has a different meaning across the Atlantic, so it was changed to Mist and Stone. But then during her...
I can't get over the idea that it'd be a court of farts and bricks.
During her Queen of Shadows tour, her editor suggested a Court of Common Fury, but Maas liked the word Fury. Interesting that she named a character shortly after that. Fury, yeah. And then so she had a bunch of them. So it's like a Court of Stars and Smoke, Wings and Stars, Venom and Silver. I thought that was interesting.
Oh.
Stars and Frost. So it seems like, the Wings, Stars, Frost, she used them later. but then she chose Mist and Fury, which she talks about misting a lot. That's when we realize like Reese's power of misting in this book, so that kind of makes sense. She also said her music for the book was going to be not human. It's from Pan's Labyrinth, 2006.
Interesting.
Cosmic Love by Florence and the Machine. Love that song. It was one of the pieces that inspired the Starfall scenes. Curtain Call from Shakespeare in Love. That's where that's the soundtrack the song you're supposed to listen to for chapter 55.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And then Gun by Churches. This is the track that inspired the last scene in the book when Feyre returns to the Spring Court. So we're going to have to play some of those songs and feel like if it's the vibe or not. And we'll have to talk about it on the next one. But I found that today. Cosmic Love makes perfect sense. I know that song really well, but I don't know Not Human from Pan's Labyrinth. But it's supposed to be inspired the entirety of the Weaver in the Wood sequence.
It makes so much sense.
I'm pumped about that.
Yeah.
So,
no, that makes so much sense.
But besides the whole fun trivia, that was really cool. Whoever did all that work to find all that, props to you. Let's start with part 1, House of Beasts. So we're going to do the whole part 1 today. I'm very excited. I have so many thoughts because this is my first reread. And
I've reread it like 1,000 times. So this is Jess's first time revisiting it.
I was so into your whole Reese might be evil thing, but no, fuck that. I can't
You're
be
reading
into it.
from Feyre's perspective, though, so you have to keep that in mind.
I don't care. Also, the first draft of this book had Reese and Feyre's point of view. That was another fun fact. Give me that fucking manuscript. Have you
read the Illyrian Tremors version?
No. What is that?
Let
me get my notepad.
Okay. Illyrian Tremors on AO3 wrote A Court of Mist and Fury from Rhysand's perspective. Apparently, Sarah J Maas has read it and approved of it. It is so good. This whole first part, the House of Beasts, it is like so sad, and you see like Rhysand like struggling with like, I want to leave Feyre alone, I want her to be happy, but like she's my mate and I love her, and
Tamlin sucks.
It's so good, guys. So if you haven't read it, read it. And I think you can get it bound and everything. And
Ooh.
I want to learn how to bookbind just so I can bookbind the Illyrian Tremors, Mist and Fury.
I think that's what our next thing should do. Because I want to bind my Latin book. Because it is literally falling apart. And I want to do it. I've done it one time a long time ago, but it was like in a class thing. So I don't really remember. But I think we should do that. Wine and Wingspan hosts a bookbinding party.
All right, girlies. So if you're in the Springfield area... bookbinding at Joe's house.
Perfect. Okay, so let's go through the depressing stuff. So like chapter 1, she has major PTSD. She earns it. 100% girl. Everybody would have PTSD. You were just a lowly little human doing this thing, and you are puking, you're having nightmares. She does mention Tamlin's having nightmares, but
who cares?
No one cares about Tamlin.
A man. Shut up.
With a trauma? Ew. No one cares about you. I think at the beginning, doing my reread, I actually had more sympathy for Tamlin than the first time.
Yeah.
Because I was kind of like, dude, yeah, he went through some shit, but at the same time, I'm not going to make excuses for that. He didn't do anything to help her under the mountain.
Yeah.
He tried to get his dick wet with her in the closet. Like, that's all he did. I don't even let my husband let me do the dishes by myself, and I'm gonna let some man watch me get my ass kicked for 3 months straight. No. Like, that's... Oh, pause. I'm pretty sure someone's coming to my front door.
Oh, no.
My kids showed up. I was like, who? Why are you ringing the doorbell?
We can
What
get
is it?
a whole bookbinding kit for $36, okay? And then we just gotta print... I can get at Staples, I can print out the covers we want and the actual books. So I feel like we could each bind our own book.
I feel like we could do that. That's pretty easy.
Anyways.
Okay. So back to Feyre under the mountain, Tamlin not doing stuff. So they're both dealing with a lot of trauma, right? And she's not really sure what she needs to do. She justifies a lot for him, which I find kind of interesting, that she keeps on making excuses. And I do understand that he can't, he's so terrified of something happening to her, but he's living in like a state of delusion at this point. Nothing's going on. There's no war, but I'm having to do all this border patrol stuff, and Feyre's fine. Let me just have sex with her every once in a while and everything will be like, what the fuck? Neither one of them. It's like, okay, I think this is, we can go to this into reality, which I really had like this whole epiphany while driving the car and listening to it, is Tamlin wasn't a bad guy. Does he suck compared to Rhys? Yeah. But I think there's a point in some relationships where they're fine and you love somebody a lot, and then something happens that changes both of you, and then you become toxic for each other. Yes. Even though that thing that happens isn't necessarily anyone's fault. And I think that's what this represents, and a lot of people miss the point of that, is that this is just a natural evolution of some relationships. That, and you sit here and you try to make it work, and you end up just drowning yourself in the process instead of letting go, you know.
Tamlin and Feyre very clearly do genuinely love each other. Yeah. Tamlin grew up in an environment where he had no one, and before he became High Lord, he never was supposed to be. So he just was like a fighter, and clearly didn't really have much love from his father or his brothers. Like, I believe in the first book, he's pretty clear that, like, and Rhysand's pretty clear that their parent situations are pretty similar. Yeah. Where, like, Tamlin really loved his mom, but, like, didn't have a good relationship with his dad. And then he's just alone, you know, like for hundreds of years. Him and Rhysand have both been alone. But unlike Rhys, where Rhysand was then surrounded by people that loved him, like, he still had his brothers. Rhysand still had his cousin. Tamlin was alone, completely alone, until Lucien came along. So it's kind of like Tamlin is like he's like, he doesn't have any tools in his toolbox for like dealing with trauma, where Rhysand has like healthy coping mechanisms because he has people around him that help him. Like, Rhysand relies on his friends through all of his hardships, you know, and like he has them to fall back on, and he does way too much and he takes on way too much, but his friends are there for him. Whereas Tamlin has no choice but to shoulder everything all on his own all the time. So it's really no wonder that, like, he won't let Feyre in. He's never had to do that before. Right. Ever.
And he's never seen somebody do that either.
No, like, he hasn't had
examples.
Exactly. So it doesn't excuse Tamlin's behavior. But, like, when you, it's like, the easiest way to like kill the one you love is never loving them enough, but it's almost like he loved her too much, and he doesn't want to lose her. And in the same way that Rhysand doesn't want, they both love her, but Tamlin's just no longer good for her. Yeah, that's it. You know, I think people like just dog on Tamlin, and Tamlin does inexcusable things, but in Akamath,
but think about
I would be the same way.
Desperation, yes. In desperation, you always make up messed up things, good intentions, blah blah blah, that whole shit.
The last time that he let her go,
I think he just can't deal, and he loses his mind.
The last time he let her go, she died under the mountain. The last time he let her go, she showed up and then she died. I wouldn't want her to leave the house. I'd be terrified if my partner, if I saw him die because of me, I would literally hold on to him and never let him go ever again for the rest of my life. I would want to keep him contained. I don't think that Tamlin's reaction is so insane. Like, he's angry and misunderstood. It doesn't mean he's a good person, but he's not pure evil. He just makes really bad choices.
Yeah, facts. I think that he also is this is what I will say. He is realistic about Feyre. He's like, okay, yeah, you hunted to like feed your family, but you're not a warrior. This is not time for you to go like, let me try my skills out. Yeah. Like, we don't have time for that right now. I think he should have let her train, but he should have started her how everyone who's high fae trains, not given her special treatment. But I think he was realistic. She's not Aelin. She's not Aelin. And I think that's what like a lot of like Sarah J Maas people compare her to is that strong female lead, which she is, which is fine, but she's not a warrior at all. She was just a survivor. That's what she was. And she got lucky under the mountain. At the end of the day, the worm was skill and being very cunning, but the rest of that, it was luck.
She would have died. Her and Lucian both.
Yeah.
Like,
thank God Rhys stepped in.
Yeah.
So one character that I did not pay enough attention to the first time around was Ianthe. Because I think her and Tamlin used to fuck. It has to. Why is he trusting her so much? I don't like.
They grew up together.
They say that, but I'm like, but Lucian doesn't even trust her.
No.
So why? Like later on we find out she's skeezy, but I still feel like she's a power grabbing little slut, and why Tamlin is letting her essentially be the woman of the house and giving her that much power was mind-blowing to me.
Yeah,
I feel like that was too much, or maybe Tamlin just didn't want to deal with it. I think
too, like, we don't know what Ianthe's powers are necessarily, if she has any, but I think she's a master manipulator. Like, she is just so good at getting very powerful men to give her what she wants, and the only one that can seem to resist her, only ones that can seem to resist her are men that have mates. It's like, if you're not mated, they're just irresistible. Like, Lucian has a mate. He doesn't know it at this point, but he can resist her. Yeah. Rhysand has a mate. He can resist her. Everybody else just falls under her spell.
Yeah.
She's so icky.
I do think that Ianthe, yeah, you're right, is manipulative, and everything she's doing for Feyre is manipulative.
Extremely manipulative.
And the fact that Tamlin, once again, like, Feyre comes to Tamlin a couple times, and she's like, hey, I don't like the dress. She shows him the dress, and they're both like, what the fuck? And he's not like, you should wear on your wedding day what you want. Like, it's a very simple thing. It's Ianthe knows best. Then marry Ianthe. Like, why are you marrying me? So Ianthe sucks. Well, she'll suck more later, but so we'll be able to talk to her. But the wedding. So basically, that's all that happens up until the point of the wedding. Is Anthony's telling her what to do. She's drowning. They're having some sex, but it's like just to mask the pain of all the PTSD that everyone's having. Lucian feels really bad for Feyre the entire time, and he's like, I can't go above my high lord. So Sarah's really emphasizing the structure of his court, and it's because of the court she's about to introduce. But there is a hierarchy. Tamlin's word is law, period, at the end of the day, and no one can trump him, whether he's right or wrong. Whether everyone knows he's wrong, no one's going to trump him. So literally, I'm at the page where he says his word is law. That's funny. And so she's struggling with becoming a member of the court. And so we're going to jump over to the wedding scene, which I'm very excited about. So she's in her shitty wedding dress. I don't know
Miss
why
Cupcake
I always
herself.
pictured it as like an 80s like poof. I feel like that's what we should do for a summer solstice parties. Everyone finds a thrift store version of Feyre's dress.
The ugliest wedding dress you can find. That's so funny.
Wouldn't that be the funnest party ever?
Yes.
What's going to be Feyre's wedding day?
Oh my god.
Vogue 2024.
My good friend Ashley Figlow had to get a wedding dress for Alexia, and The dress that she got is the dress from what's that movie with David Bowie? Labyrinth. The wedding dress from Labyrinth. So it's like a Halloween costume, but it's like the actual, I'll put a picture of it. It's like the actual one. It's so funny. It's so horrifying.
The thing about the wedding dress, besides it just being ugly as fuck, this poor girl going into her wedding day, it's like she has an evil future mother-in-law, but it's Ianthe.
Oh my god.
They make her wear gloves because they're like, we're not going to let anyone know that you made a deal with Rhys-Ann. Tamlin's bitter as fuck. And you know Rhys-Ann is, he's like jumping into her mind every 5 minutes. He's like, bitch.
Yeah, you know he's like eating that up.
Oh yeah, 100%. So everybody's favorite moment about this book is she is not ready to be married, obviously. And it's not just like, oh, her wedding dress or whatever. She's dealing with some trauma. She needs to heal before she gets married to somebody. And Tamlin needs to heal. This is just, once again, a good relationship that something horrible happened. And it's just getting more and more toxic. It's like people who, this might be controversial, but I don't care, who keep having kids to save their relationship.
Yeah.
It's like, that's not what you're doing here.
Children will not make it easier.
It makes it a lot harder.
It's gonna be harder. Yeah.
So
they just keep putting band-aids on their relationship the whole time. Like,
or getting married.
Yeah. Stop. It's not gonna make it better.
No, they have no idea. And poor Tamlin's up there. He's like, oh fuck. I wish we did have a chapter of Tamlin's point of view just to see how she's picturing all these things processing in his mind. Because he's not stupid and he's not a bad person. He just has PTSD. So she's sitting there and she's like, oh my God, somebody, anybody help me. I'm drowning. I don't know. No. And she's looking around and everyone's like, oh shit, what's happening? And then all of a sudden, which if you've never read the audio, listening to a winnowing sound is very funny. And so Ianthe's like, come bride and be joined with your true love, blah, blah, blah. And all I can imagine is the guy from The Princess Bride where he's like, marriage.
Marriage is the reason we are gathered here today.
But it's Ianthe.
Love. True love.
So
my God.
He shows up. So everyone's like freaking out. And the most famous line, hello, Farrah, darling. He purred. Rhys shows up. And he's like, Well, this is also another thing. Rhys is such a piece of shit. And I love it so much that he's like, what a pretty little wedding. And he's so funny about it. I forgot how funny he was and how much of an asshole he was until reading this again. And I'm like, you cocky frat boy little shit.
Yeah.
You know he's over at the House of Wind or in the townhouse and this is happening and he's like looking at everybody. He's like, it's my time to shine.
Yeah.
And like winnows away, you know. He ate it up. I would have killed for that chapter of his point of view on that. So everybody's obviously panicking. Ianthe dips out immediately. She's like,
that's
run.
The funniest thing is Tamlin's like, let us finish this, and he's like, well, I mean, your officiant's gone.
Yeah.
You turn around and she's gone.
So he's like, Tamlin's like, get out, and he's like, no. And then he's like, I'll be taking her now. Just fucking cocky as hell. And then he's like, don't you dare. And then he's like, was I interrupting? I thought it was over. At least Farrah seems to think so.
Cold as motherfucking ice.
Oh, yeah. And so Ianthe dips out and he's like, I'm not in a mood to bargain. And Tamlin knows that he's never going to win against Rhys. But he still tries, so I'll give Tamlin that. He tried. He's like, name your price. And then he kind of talks shit and he's like, Rhys ends up saying such dramatics. And I'm like, coming from the queen of drama, Rhys-Ann himself, okay.
Yeah.
And so he takes her away. And what was really interesting to me, so he's like, welcome to the night court, you know, and he takes her to above the mountain. Under the mountain with Amarantha was modeled after the Court of Nightmares, as we all know. And so he takes her to like the the castle up front on top of it, and she talks about how beautiful it was. And he's just like, okay, so this is my house. No one's going to mess with you. Think about your life. Peace out. But not before, of course, she throws a shoe at him. And he's eating it up. That was another thing. It was the banter. She never had good banter with anybody besides him.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, she throws a shoe and he's so excited. He wants to play. But he's like, I can't. She doesn't realize I have to choose all my words really carefully, but every once in a while you see that slip of real Reese come through, and that's usually whenever he's being annoying to her, like most men are. So he's like, I just want you. She's like, well, what do you want from me? And he's like, well, I want you to take off that hideous dress.
And like internally, I'm sure he's like, I would like for you to take off that dress. But internally, he's like, externally, he's like, that's the ugliest fucking thing I've ever seen. Please remove it from your body, please.
He doesn't really, I feel like, in this part, when she first goes, I feel like he's just giving her a chance. Like, okay, so this is kind of how things are. Do whatever you want. Just take a week and chill the fuck out. So he's giving her a moment to think. So she basically spends the whole week there, not really doing anything. She kind of meanders around. She sleeps a lot. That was one thing that she did. They had breakfast and if I could breathe. And they were just kind of getting to know each other. It's very, I thought there was going to be so much more. When I reread this, I thought a lot more happened than what it did, but he's just like, okay, here's how the courts work. And he's showing her certain things on purpose because he knows that she's going to get interrogated when Tamlin comes back.
Well,
so
also,
he's very careful about what he shows, and he's very careful about the words he chooses when he explains things to her.
And he like shows her things that he knows are going to motivate her, because clearly, like, she could just sit there. I mean, Feyre has already shown who she is. I don't know why Tamlin is surprised by what she wants, because he gave her everything that anyone in her position could have dreamed of. A comfortable life with her family, with all the money in the world, and she left it all to do what was right. So if Rhysand shows her, Hybern's coming, there's a war coming, I think Rhysand knows Feyre well enough to know that she's not going to be satisfied with sitting around and
she's
doing
not
nothing.
Sit by idly.
No, not at all.
And it's not just, the thing I will say is, like, him immediately teaching her how to read is, he's like, I need you to arm your mind before we can ever arm your body. And so teaching her how to use her shield, and not being like, treating her like she's gonna break about it too. He's like immediately slams into her and he's like, put up your shield, he's not holding back. And I think she doesn't even like, she's saying that's all she wants from everybody, but then she gets it from Rhys and she's like, you're an asshole. Feyre,
shut up.
decide what you want.
What do you want?
So she's starting to learn how to read, and of course it is he does kind of like insult her every 5 minutes though. She's like, no, I'm not going to learn how to read from you. And he's like, oh, you'll have to make dinner menus for dinner parties and write thank you letters for all your wedding gifts and blah blah blah. And she's like, can you go fuck yourself? How about that? It's always so funny how he puts things. So she ends up meeting more obviously is more, and she's so excited to meet her. And you know that Rhys had to have a conversation with her beforehand. He's like, don't fucking say anything. Don't do this. Don't, like, it's like talking to your kids before you go out in public. You're going to act right or you're going to get grounded.
Yeah.
So Moore's just like, I can't wait to be your best friend. And she can already see, like, what's interesting is Moore's battling with Rhys a little bit. And Feyre's like, oh my God, she's saying that to a High Lord. What?
Yeah.
Because if Lucian never said anything,
it'd be on site.
Yeah. So we're already starting to see the differences in the courts when first thought is, oh, night court is so horrible. You're going to get, your leg cut off as soon as you get there. It's crazy. She goes back to reading for a little while, and he's talking in her mind, so she figures that out, how to do that. And then he does all the lovely sentences of Reese is the sexiest High Lord. So he does kind of propose her the first time, and tells her about the war coming with Highburn. He gives her a backstory, which, mind you, still, Tamlin hasn't said anything. He's like, oh, there's some monsters roaming around. But he's like, okay, this is who Highburn is. This is this. Like, he's giving her information, which is all she's really wanted, to just be a part of it. And then he's, training her with her shields at the same time. So I, once again, think that he was being very careful about what he was telling her, because he knew that as soon as she got back, everything was going to be questioned. Which I almost feel like he gave her too much information the first time. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
I mean, she tells everything to Tamlin, but Rhysand's kind of a mastermind, so I wonder if he planted the information in Feyre because he knew she was going to say it. And,
probably.
And Tamlin is the last line of defense against the mortal lands, so thinking that he would care because he literally wanted to marry a mortal, maybe he would protect them.
No, why would he care?
Unfortunately, does not do that, does he? But
no, not at all. I think something else too, that how you're saying that he's a mastermind with it. There was that map on the wall of Prythian, and Night Court was basically blacked out, so she could see every detail of everybody else, but not the Night Court. So that's how she didn't know about like Illyrians and where everything is. She didn't foresaw the map. So something that really stood out to me on the reread was you saw the mate slip. That's what I'm going to call it. It's whenever Reese starts to get pissy. And so he's talking about the oncoming war, and that Feyre's like, well, I can't make a decision. She says that she's Tamlin's subject. She goes, well, I'm his subject. And Reese gets pissed. And she talks about the flash of anger that comes out of him, and that how he says, you are no one's subject. And I feel like those moments are Reese being like, no, I'm protecting my mate. You are fucking nobody's subject. And that's very primal Reese, and that's the Reese we love. That's why I'm like, Reese isn't evil. I don't give a fuck. He's my true love.
I love this Reese. I love him just being pissed and righteously indignant. I freaking love it.
So she ends up going back, and he's like, I'll see you next month, bye. And he's courteous the whole, well, he's an asshole, but he's courteous the whole time. Like, he's like, okay, your week's up, let's take you back. He follows the rules very carefully with her. And of course, as soon as he gets back, Tamlin's like, oh, I missed you. And then they go to like make out. Instead of having like a lover's return, he's like, tell me everything about Rhysand. Like, do you even care that she's back?
Also, he's like, I literally freaking trashed half the house because I was so mad about you being gone. Shut up. Shut up.
Like, let's just talk about how your emotional range is very limited, because
this is where I'm like, Tamlin, I want to root for you so hard, but you are such a Chad. I wrecked the living room, babe. I missed you so much, I flipped a chair. Shut up. Just stop talking, Tamlin.
And then Lucian's just like, hey, welcome back.
Yes, they like interrogate her, and
it's wild.
Lucian's like, I think some of these High Lords are going to want to kill you when they find out that you've got all these powers. Which was interesting, because then it never happened. Like, I was expecting... I mean, it kind of did, I guess.
When they had the meeting, but I think once they like all flexed their power, they were like, we're probably not going to walk away from that.
Yeah. But
I think that should have been more of a thing than what it was. I agree. I do wonder why Ianthe, as soon as she started finding out that Feyre had all the powers, that she didn't go to all the courts.
Yeah. Yeah, she doesn't really
know.
sell Feyre out how she should, I guess.
Yeah.
In theory.
I figured that she would have. I don't know, though. But, so, they end up going through the whole thing, and she's, like, behind her, and so she's trying to tell him, like, oh, this could become a war, like, you know, my family's unprotected, what do we do? And he's like, no.
It's fine.
No.
It's fine.
No, this isn't a thing. You're making things up. This is conspiracy theory. And then she refers back when Tamlin kind of gets onto her and he says, you know, that's it. We're done with this conversation. He's like, describe the room again for me. So he's not even letting her venture down this or ask questions. And she's like, okay. And then it flashes in her brain what Rhys said, you are no one's subject. And so she's starting to feel empowered slowly yet surely. So then the tithe happens. And I think she was 100% right and justified in the way that she acted with the tithe because, you know, she was a survivor. She went for weeks on end without eating and, you know, on the brink of death a lot and watched a lot of poverty within the human realm in general. And now she's living in this life of luxury and you're telling me everybody in Spring Court has to come and bring whatever their rate of taxes is, basically is what the tithe is, it's taxes. And it's stuff that they don't even need. Like she mentioned, like one person brought a little basket of mushrooms and she's like, we don't need these. Why are we do not need this. And Tamlin, I this is one thing that I kind of got pissy with Tamlin. He's like, well, I waited 3 months to start the tithe again and I didn't do it for 50 years. You think your people who are just coming out from underneath the mountain are going to be able to pay shit or grow anything in 3 months? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
What do you mean that you think that they're going to be able to do that? So she ends up giving her jewels to one of the water wraiths. And everybody says that water wraiths are just like, there's no fish in the pond. And so she tells, the wraith tells Tamlin, I have no fish, what am I going to do? And he's like, well, you need to either have double the fish for next month, or you have 3 days to give it to me, or I get to come on a hunt with you. And what I found really kind of like fucked up about it is when he's telling her this, Ianthe's standing in the back room, like nodding to him. And it says earlier that Ianthe, the priestess, gives Tamlin the right to go on the hunt. Like, what? What the fuck? So that was very interesting to me. So obviously Feyre can't let it rest, so she follows the water wraith out and she's like, I'm giving you all this jewelry I have on me. And she's like, this isn't a bargain. Just I know what it's like to be hungry. Please take it. This is very important for later on. Mm-hmm. But she, Alice ends up talking to her about it and was like, you know that wraiths are kind of fucked up, right? And she goes, that doesn't mean anything. I don't care. Like what she does with the jewels, that's on her. My conscience is clear. And she tells her, you know, I think Alice is really proud of her in that moment. And she's like, you know, she will never forget it. Her and her sisters will never forget this from you. Even though that she kind of feels like it was a little, I guess, stupid to give them that. She felt proud of Feyre. And I think that is more important.
Because Feyre finally makes her own decision.
Yeah.
For like the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
And Tamlin is pissed.
He's like, I gave you that jewelry. Ugh.
It's so stupid. It's like, we're rich, Tamlin. And Lucien is mad too. And this is when when Feyre starts experimenting with her powers a little bit, because she sees through Lucien's eyes. Like, she's so angry, like overcome with emotions, that her powers start lashing out. So she sees like through Lucien's eyes for a second, and then she like looks down and she's burned the table.
Interesting that she's looking at looking through Lucien's eyes with Rhys's power, but then
and and then the Autumn Court power.
Mm-hmm. I thought that I was like, clever Sarah. I saw what you did here. And she stands up to Tamlin because he's like, you're not even done with your breakfast. And she's like, yeah, go fuck yourself. How about that?
Yep.
How about just, no, I don't give a shit. So they're constantly at each other, and they're like, oh, I'm sorry. It's so toxic. It's like the cycle of the toxic relationship.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Oh, let me have sex with you now. And she wants to go help rebuild the court.
Yeah.
But everyone keeps telling her, you've given enough, Feyre. Which, it's true. She has. She's given far more than she owes the Fae. Like, she literally gave her entire life.
Yeah.
And she did what no Fae could have done. She did it. But she feels like there's more to do. She didn't feel like she gave it all. And she knows that she can help rebuild, houses and things like that. She needs to feel useful, and she needs to be busy so she doesn't sit in her emotions.
Yeah.
Idle hands and all that shit. So they take her out to go to one of the houses or the villages, and her and Lucian go out there, and they're like, oh, do you need any help? Do you need help? And they're like, no, your debt is paid. No, your debt is paid. Like, do not, no. They won't. And I feel like as a villager, they don't want her doing that work. But at the same time, she's a reminder of the mountain. Like, we're thankful that she freed us, but all she is going to be a reminder of what happened to us for 50 years. So she's in this really, I feel like, terrible position.
Yeah, she's like literally trapped. No one will let her do anything. And then to add insult to injury, was the most ridiculous thing. So they get in this fight, and then Tamlin gives her a present to apologize. And it's a traveling painting kit.
But she can't go anywhere.
It's like, you idiot. And then they get in an argument, and because it's Tamlin, he like lashes out, and like his power like destroys the room, and she was able to shield herself. But that's really crazy that she can do that. And then
who is that? That's Helion, isn't it? Or who is that? Who's the shield?
Yeah, Helion.
Summer Court. Yeah.
Because he's a spell cleaver. Like, he can like weave words and things. So she puts the shield up. He would have killed her. Yeah.
Or pretty close to killing her. I don't know what the high fae like.
And so Talon's like, I'm sorry. I just can't control my rage. Oh, Famer, and then they please. Bang. Yeah. I'm sorry. And then they bang, and then this is like one of my favorite parts from this part of the book, is because I just can't imagine how Rhys feels. So they have sex, and then the next morning, Feyre wakes up. No clothes on. And Tamlin and Rhysand are arguing. And she comes out, and Rhys sees her, and he's like, are you guys like starving her? Like, what's the situation?
Yeah, she looks like gaunt.
Yeah. And this is the first time that Feyre's like, honestly, going back to the Night Court would be better than here right now. And he takes her. And Tamlin, again, is like, please, I'll give you anything you want. And Rhys is like, no. And so they go back to the Night Court. But I love that it's like the first time she's like, I want to leave. Like, I don't want to be here. And Rhysand, he came because he felt her fear down the bond, which must have been terrifying for him in hindsight.
Yeah, he can't do anything.
It just sucks. So they have like breakfast together, and she's like, aren't you busy? And he's like, I'm never too busy for you, which is definitely big change from Tamlin, who's always too busy for Feyre, and everything's always on his terms. And Rhys is like, why don't you come work for me, basically? And she's like, no, I don't want to work for you. And you're just trying to piss off Tamlin. But I don't really feel
maybe.
Like perhaps. And Tamlin, or Rhysand's like, I literally endured so much under the mountain to protect this world, and I cannot allow it to be destroyed. I really need your help.
Yeah.
Which is a big deal. Like, Rhysand, this High Lord, the most powerful High Lord to ever live, is asking Feyre for help.
Yeah.
And all Feyre wants is to, like, help. But she still is like, no. I'm like, you fucking idiot. Like, there's your exact thing you've been asking for, falls into your lap, and you're like, ugh. But he's just like way too hot, and my boyfriend's gonna be so mad. Shut up. Shut up, girl. So she can, like, feel how angry it's making him through the bond. She can feel Rhys's rage. But you'll notice that Rhys and Tamlin deal with their rage in two very different ways, because Tamlin lashes out uncontrollably. Rhysand completely controls himself and takes her home.
Yeah. He also lets her kind of unleash her power just a little bit before he takes her home. That he's like, he gets her going, because he's like, you can't just hold all this in if you don't talk about Under the Mountain. I think he says, like, you let that bitch win or something like that. Yeah. And she knows he's right. And so she kind of gets mad, and her ice forms. And he's like, all right, well, what else do you have? Don't show anybody that, or blah, 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 or let's just ignore it like they're doing. And so then he's like, okay, let's go back.
Yeah.
Weeks up.
Yeah.
And then he tells her to get inside.
Yeah, and Feyre has the claws.
Yeah.
But I
forgot about that.
She never actually transforms into a beast.
Oh, she takes the Illyrian form instead.
But I wanted to see beast form, like, so bad.
Maybe we will one day.
Maybe. I hope so.
Maybe she doesn't touch it because of her relationship with Tamlin or something.
Maybe, but I want to.
But it'd be pretty cool. Beast versus the worm.
The worm. So yeah, she does that. She's like, my powers, my claws, my bear claws.
So they, even after she's told Tamlin, I need you to let up on the guards, she gets back and it's like, boom, twice as many as the first time. And she's like, what the fuck? So she's pissed off about that. He keeps just, that she needs to go on a ride or get out of the house. And he's like, no, you can't go anywhere.
Oh, did you notice?
And she's begging.
When she gets back, they're talking about killing Rhys. And,
yes.
And Lucien tells her again, he's like, your kids are going to have all your powers. So the High Lords are going to want to kill you because of your kids. And I completely forgot about that. But with Nyx, fast forward, that kid is going to be insanely powerful. And also, imagine a toddler with every High Lord power.
They couldn't have, like, another sibling. Or maybe they do, and that one becomes more powerful.
Maybe.
Because one will start to display it. I don't know. If they have more than one. It's
just crazy to me to think about future, like Nyx in the future having all these powers. Like, that would be, imagine you have, like, all of your mom's High Lord powers, High Lady powers, and then you get your dad's High Lord power. That is an unstoppable.
And then your uncles are Cassian and Azriel.
Yeah, you're in trouble. The world is gonna end.
Auntie Amryn.
Yeah.
So she wants to go out, and she's like, she's pushing back for once, which she kind of just went along for the past 3 months with what he said, but she's really pushing him. I think that's what Rhys wants. And then Lucian's like, just be patient, yada, yada, yada. And then he traps her inside. And this is where it gets juicy. So so she was like, okay, maybe I can winnow out of here. Okay, so I have all these powers met. And so she's trying to figure out how to winnow. She doesn't know how to winnow. And then she's just, I mean, just like PTSD. She can't breathe. She can't breathe. And then she literally like blows up into darkness. It was a cocoon of darkness and fire and ice and wind. A cocoon that melted the ring off of my finger until the golden ore dripped away into the void, the emerald tumbling after it. That's really powerful. I don't think I realized how powerful that was the first time I read that. I don't think she ever does that again.
No, that's why
But
I
if she
was
could have figured it
so
out.
disappointed in Feyre, because I felt like she had the potential to be the most powerful
Yeah.
female lead we've ever seen, and she barely does anything with her power at all except this.
Ta-da!
Ta-da!
So then Moore shows up. So Rhys obviously hears this and he's like, fuck that. Time to go get her. But he sends Moore in because he knows he has to do it by the book. And what's interesting to me is that Alice, you know, who told her not too long ago she did the right thing with the race, basically. And she gives her to Moore, more or less. You know, and she was like, just please take care of her. Alice just wants what's best for Feyre. And Moore's the only one who could go into that darkness and get her. So, which also shows how powerful Moore was. And Moore just strolled on in and was like, I got you, boo. Don't worry about it. So, and then the biggest thing she says to her is, you're free. You're free. Not safe, not protected, but free. So, they end up back at the House of Wind, not the House of Wind, the Court of Nightmares, the Night Court. And Rhys stays up all night with her, and he's just like lounging in the chair. You know that night for him had to have been just
Terrible.
horrific. Like, I'm surprised he didn't missed the entire summer or spring court. And then immediately as she wakes up, and then he sees that she's awake, and you know, he's like, oh, are you okay? And he said, you know, he kind of explained to her what happened, what she did, and that Moore had to go and get her because of protocol, yada, yada, yada. And then she was just like, and she kind of finally lets him in, and she says, you know, like, he locked me in the house. And that's the first time she's really getting truthful and emotional with him, which she was not before. It was always face value. Like, it was never anything deep, like, even though they both know something's going on. So, and then she has the realization that she goes, I have nowhere else to go. Rhys is like, perfect. I got like 5 houses, babe. Which one you want?
You can literally stay anywhere here that you want. I will take you there. It's fine.
Do you want my bedroom?
Have I got news for you?
Rhys is like, I've never heard such better words.
Yeah. Say that again one more time. Oh, you have nowhere else to go? Oh, yeah. That hits the spot.
So she says, you know, he's like, you know, stay here for however long you want. You know, he's trying to give her an open invitation. I will take you back whenever you want to go. Figure your shit out. And then she's just because she's so used to kind of being told what to do at the spring court. She's just kind of like, now what?
Yeah.
And he's like, listen, you can have whatever you want. Help me. If you help me, I don't give a shit. Work for me. I owe you anyways. Do whatever you want. I just need your help. And so she said, I'm not going back, not until I figure things out. Which, of course, you know, Rhys was like, fuck yeah. Yes. What else I want to
Perfect.
So I also think it's convenient how she doesn't have that ring on anymore, to where it's not like this constant reminder of Tamlin going forward, which is interesting. And then so he, you know, he's given her drinks, and he's like talking to her about her powers. And then, you know, like the wind most likely came from the day court, etc., etc. And so he's like, well, I have to go do some stuff. I'll be back at the end of the week. And she's like, take me with you. It's the best part of the book. And he's like, no, you know, you should rest. You should just, you know, like, chill out, take a little nappy poo. And she's just like, please. So she's in this predicament once again where she's like, take me with you. I don't want to be locked in this house. technically she's not locked in that house, but she doesn't know the area. It's not like she doesn't have any friends.
Yeah.
She might as well just stay in the house. And so he's kind of, he's feeling her again. And so he kind of tells her, if you come with me, this is it. You cannot.
There is no turning back.
Anything. Yeah, this is in-game, baby.
Yeah.
And then you might want to go freshen up. And because she's like, yeah, where are we going? And then the most like famous line ever.
To Valaris. City of Starlight.
So he's like, she's like, what the fuck is that? They make this into a movie or a TV show and they do that line, she's going to be like, okay. I just don't give a shit. I just don't want to be here. Yeah.
Reese's smile widened into a grin. To Valaris, the city of starlight.
And all of us fangirls are going to be screaming in the movie theaters.
End of episode. Yeah.
So she ends up in a house and she's kind of like, where the fuck am I? And it's cozy and it's warm and it feels like a home. It doesn't feel just like a mansion. And she's looking outside and she realizes, I'm in a fucking city. What the fuck is a city?
There's no monsters. There's nothing scary. I can hear children outside. That's one of my favorite parts. She's like, kids?
People? What the fuck are those?
There's a whole this is like organized society, unlike the crumbling, falling apart spring court. There's infrastructure. What?
Roads?
What? There's public roadways here. Like I love this visual so much of her she's like, I'm gonna go with him and it's gonna be so terrible, and then she gets there and it's like literally utopia. She's like, oh my god, why she ever would want to go back after that, no idea.
I have no idea. So and that it brings us to the end of part one. So I do feel bad for Tamlin.
I really do,
But I think that he needs to address his own trauma and quit trying to make decisions when he obviously has some fucking issues.
Yeah, and he just going through it. Poor guy is misunderstood, but also a therapist would make a killing in the spring court. I mean, an absolute killing. Out of network, it would be unbelievable.
Out of network.
An out-of-network therapist in the spring court would be rich. Yeah. Charging by the hour. Jewels on jewels. But that's the end of part 1 of Akamath. I think we're going to do this in 3 parts because this book has so much. So I guess in the next episode we'll get into Feyre beginning her work in the Night Court. We're going to meet our favorite people on the planet.
I'm so excited.
The Bat Boys. We get to meet Amren. So much happens. I think the Summer Court is in this part as well.
The Weaver.
And so the Weaver. So lots of really iconic scenes.
I can't wait to read that part again.
I know. It's so good. So make sure you guys tune in next week for part 2. We're going to talk more about that. And there's a lot with the Weaver and the Bone Carver and Bryaxis that was CC. Mm-hmm. Just a lot of context. So excited to talk more about that next week. But until then, thanks for tuning in, guys. And we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
I'm waiting for the balloons.
I know. We had a few thumbs ups during the thing, but yay!
Well, hi, lords and ladies. That is it for this episode of Wine and Wingspan. Make sure you're following us on TikTok, Instagram, and everywhere you listen to podcasts at Wine and Wingspan Pod.
Have a book you'd like us to talk about or a hot take you want us to break down? Send us all your opinions to wineandwingspanpod@gmail.com. May your glass be full and your wingspans be long.